You already know what time it is. Welcome back into the NFL with AJL, episode 74. We are live on a Friday. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but you're right here tapped in with me on the show. Hope you guys have had an excellent week so far as we have another week flying by, as we have a good weekend of college football and a good weekend of the NFL coming up as well. Please make sure to like and share the show wherever you are watching. Subscribe on YouTube and hit the bell so you never miss a post. You know what the QR code does. If you scan it, it gives you every bit of content we put out for the show at the NFL with AJL on all social media and podcast platforms. If you can't find me, I promise you are simply not looking hard enough. We got a packed show tonight. Maybe not necessarily packed, but some great topics. Georgia versus Alabama prediction, Saints versus Falcons hate week preview. Is Trevor Lawrence a bust? We're going to be talking about that 2021 NFL draft class, and his counterpart, Justin Fields, is 3-0 with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Is he turning his career around? Let's not waste any more time and go ahead and jump right into the show, as we do have Georgia versus Alabama in Tuscaloosa, week 4 of the 2024 college football season. And this is a big game for the year. This is going to have a lot of implications on the playoffs, on the NFL, on recruiting classes. For the first time since 2007, Alabama is a home underdog in Tuscaloosa, with Georgia coming off that shaky game. Alabama, yes, they look shaky to South Florida, but they've handled business all year. They are a 2.5-point underdog. Half of the NFL is going to be at this game. 17 NFL teams will be at this game. Ton of prospects, ton of recruits, ton of scouts, really is the right word, are going to be there. And when I heard that 17 teams are going to be at this game, this is how you know it's got major implications. Major implications. Who needs to win this game more, though? I feel like that's the biggest question walking into this. And I have an argument for both coaches. I'm talking about the coaches, or rather the programs here for this aspect. I'm going to make an argument for both of them. Kirby Smart, because of outside of the first national championship when John Mechie tore his ACL in the SEC title game, and Jamison Williams tore his ACL in the national championship that Georgia actually beat Alabama in for the second matchup of the year. We know Georgia lost in the first one in the title game. Kirby Smart cannot beat this team. He can literally beat every team not named Alabama. And of course, we've seen some of the slip ups over the year with the Auburns and the South Carolinas and the other teams that have tripped Georgia up. But close or far, Kirby, outside of that national title game, cannot beat Nick Saban. You guys saw me come on the show last year when I went live for the instant reaction. I appreciate the love on that, and talked about how Georgia lost the SEC championship. This cannot go from a Nick Saban to an Alabama issue, because that's what people are going to be thinking. If the best coach ever in college football, Nick Saban, retired, and now Kirby Smart is the best coach in college football, or at least fighting for that spot, Steve Sarkisian would probably have something to say about it, maybe even Ryan Day as well. This cannot be a Nick Saban issue, because if you go and you are on the road in Tuscaloosa and you lose, people are going to look at it as a program versus a program issue. It will be a Crimson Tide problem. It will no longer be a Nick Saban issue. Kirby Smart is the better coach here, I believe, out of the two. And y'all know I have massive respect for Kalen DeBoer. I've been saying all year that I think he's going to be successful with Alabama, but I think a ton of pressure rides on Kirby. Now you turn on the flip side to KDB as well. He has to set the standard that he can win high pressure games in the SEC, because we see them get a little bit slipped up with South Florida, and then obviously they take off with it. But he has to be able to win games like this at home in the SEC, and he has to show that Bama will still reign supreme over Georgia for now as the better program, because of course we know what they did in the tenure of Nick Saban. Kirby kind of trying to take the reins from him, build Georgia into that powerhouse program. Darby, stay tuned, man. We're talking about how rough Trevor Lawrence is looking, because I had to dig into that and just really revisit that 2021 draft class. So when you look, Georgia has the 5th best recruiting class for 2025, and Alabama has the 2nd. This outcome of this game is going to swing prospects in high school to commit to either one or two of these schools. But I think Kirby undoubtedly, without question, knowing that he's been in Nick Saban's shadow in a way, knowing that he got hired from Bama over to Georgia, Kirby Smart is 1-5 against Alabama with Nick Saban as the head coach. The only win in the national championship, or I guess you could argue that's the most reputable one. But we see Georgia play Alabama earlier on in the Natty, and of course they lose when Tua comes in and absolutely steals the show. We got to talk about the deciding factors for this game, though, because Alabama is number 1 in the country with 11 touchdowns of 25 yards or more. So we know that they can light up the scoreboard. There's no question about that. Milroe's really crazy out there. We know they have Jam Miller in the backfield, those slew of Alabama running backs they always put into the league. And then Ryan Williams is looking really nice on the outside as well. But Georgia usually doesn't give up explosive plays, and they'll need to keep this up to keep the crowd at bay because we know Tuscaloosa is crazy. It's a hostile environment. And if you do not get that crowd under control, they will literally roar you out of the game. They will get you so flustered on the field to where you just won't be able to play effective football. We know this is one of the toughest places in the country to go and play. And Alabama also has shown to be susceptible to the deep ball. Now, they haven't necessarily been beat with it, but when you're looking at the all-22 tape, when you're looking at the bird's eye view of the secondary, they're getting gaps behind them. But the programs, and more importantly, the quarterbacks that they're facing just haven't had enough talent to actually hit the throws and set up the big scores. This is another area that Georgia has to take advantage of. They have to be able to have those big plays. And unfortunately, Georgia has not shown us that all year. But again, you want to be able to keep the crowd out of this game. Georgia has a hell of a schedule this year on the road against Alabama, on the road against Tennessee, on the road against Texas, on the road against Ole Miss. In case you didn't know, that's 4 of the top 6 teams in the nation, and Georgia's one of them. Georgia has a hell of a schedule this year, and they're going to have to learn to keep the crowds out of this game, starting with this game here in Tuscaloosa. And unfortunately, Georgia, again, they do not have those explosive plays like when the Ladd McConkeys and the Brock Bowers of the world were there, the George Pickens of the world, when Stetson Bennett was able to deliver the football to those guys. No player has more than 2 catches for 20 yards on for Georgia. It's all short. It's all inside play. It's all things that Carson Beck and Kirby Smart have not allowed to flow down the field yet, that Mike Bobo, who feels like is the most hated offensive coordinator in football. These are the things that have to be corrected. It's such a hostile environment. That is arguably the biggest factor of this game, because if both of these teams play, let's just say perfect, to talk about it in a vacuum, the crowd will be a big factor. And we know what type of pressure they put on these people, because Kirby only loses to this team in the last 5 years. Nick Saban accounts for exactly half of Kirby Smart's losses. Half of them. Kirby Smart, 10 losses at Georgia. Half of those come to Nick Saban. We also have Tate Ratledge, who is one of the best offensive linemen in college. We know he's going to be playing on Sundays, one of the best, if not the best offensive lineman for Georgia. We saw him go out in the Kentucky game. He's dealing with a high ankle sprain and a knee sprain. And we also saw how Kentucky sent the house at Carson Beck once he went down. Georgia has to prepare for that. If Carson Beck is not upright, if Carson Beck cannot take the time to go through his reads and dissect these plays, and Alabama brings the house like Kentucky did, and you know that they've been watching tape. That's what they do at Alabama. And just because Kalen DeBoer is the head coach doesn't mean that there's going to be anything different. Carson Beck needs to be prepared to step up in big moments in this game, because there's going to be adversity. You're already dealing with not one of your star O-linemen. Again, on the road, ranked team, biggest game of the year, biggest game of your career outside of the SEC championship. And you can even argue this one competes with that, because it is the Alabama Crimson Tide. He's got to flash his talent. I think Carson Beck is okay. I think that Carson Beck on his best days is a good quarterback. I would not put the word great. I would not put the word elite. I would not include his name in a Heisman candidacy. But if he can just show us that he can be slightly special and overcome these problems in this game, Carson Beck could change a lot of people's minds. More than anything, Georgia has to contain Jalen Milroe, though. You look last year, a little over 190 yards passing in the SEC championship, about 65 rushing yards. So that's a formidable output to basically be in Georgia's backyard and win that game in Atlanta. Georgia has to prepare for Jalen Milroe. We know Jalen Milroe's not the flashiest with his arm, but he's got a gun. We know that he can move. We know that he can use his legs very well. And at the end of the day, he is an intelligent quarterback. And he's going to try to exploit as many holes in Georgia as he can. Georgia has to keep Milroe under wraps. I'm taking Georgia to win this game 28-24. And it's going to be an absolute banger. This is going to be the game of the weekend, maybe the game of the year. It sets the stage for what Georgia really has to look forward to with, again, Tennessee on the road, Ole Miss on the road, Texas on the road. And they're playing Alabama. 4 of the top 6 teams in the nation right now, Georgia will play on the road this year. And I wasn't too worried about Tennessee coming into the season. Not really so much about Ole Miss. But I circled this Alabama game, and I damn sure circled the Texas game because it is going to be a great one for the Bulldogs to come and play in. Darby, I'm gonna get to some of your chats here. So Carson Beck is a projected first overall pick. Is he really that much better than Stetson Bennett? I don't think that Carson Beck is better than Stetson Bennett at all, bro. I really don't. Stetson Bennett showed us in times of adversity that he could step up, he could show up, he could show out. He showed us in the SEC championship game that we did lose that he could step up and make throws when we won the Natty a few years ago. When we lost the SEC championship to Alabama, that's the game I'm referencing. And even in the national championship, the first one that Georgia won, he made plays. He stepped up in the pocket. He delivered strikes. He threw 2 touchdowns in each game, if I remember correctly, after facing big negative plays, after facing turnover-worthy plays. So I just think personally Stetson Bennett was an overall better quarterback. Stetson Bennett was just more prepared for the moment. That's the best way to say it. And I don't mean prepared for the everyday football, but I mean prepared for the moments like he showed us in those SEC title games and in the national championship. I don't see Carson Beck as a first-round pick, man. Maybe because it's a weak quarterback class, you can try to convince me, but as of right now, Carson Beck is not a first-round talent. He might be a 3rd or 4th round talent. 5th round, possibly. He has nothing special about him. There's no it factor about Carson Beck. There is no, that guy does that better, or that guy does that better than anyone in the league or in the country, or does it better than most people in the league in the country. That's just not something you say about Carson Beck, and that's okay. Georgia has to cater to his strengths and mask his weaknesses. Again, give me Georgia 28-24 to win this game. It's time for a hate week preview. Darby, it was dumb that Stetson Bennett went so late in the draft, even though we've kind of seen him go a little crazy. It's time for the hate week preview. Saints versus Falcons, NFL week 4. Falcons are favored at home at -2.5. I'll be at the game. Michael Darby in the comments on YouTube will be at the game as well. We won't be at the game together, but we both will be going. It is absolutely going to... it is absolutely going to be a showdown in Atlanta. Again, Falcons are favored by 2.5 points. The Saints are coming off a slew of injuries. They just got knocked back down to earth by the Philadelphia Eagles. And the Falcons, the Falcons are a little odd right now, I will say. Because when you look at the games they've played and you look at how their offense hasn't really unlocked itself yet, but the defense is really, really being stingy. And with the Falcons being 1-2, as much as I hate to say this as a Saints fan, they could easily be 3-0. The Saints should be 3-0, but after Eric McCoy going out and we don't have Cesar Ruiz in this game, it's going to be very tough. It's going to be, yes, FTF all day, bro. It's going to be extremely difficult to try to mask these offensive line deficiencies, mask some of these injuries, and let's just go ahead and get into the game prediction as the Saints injuries are piling up. No Cesar Ruiz. No Demario Davis. Let me give a shout out to the 5-time All-Pro Demario Davis, who was signed as an undrafted free agent, or excuse me, a free agent when the Saints picked him up years ago. In his 13-year career, he has more Pro Bowls than missed games. Excuse me, he has more All-Pros, first-team All-Pros than missed games. Demario's missed 2 games in his career. The second game missed will be this Sunday. The last game that Demario missed was during COVID because of the protocol. One of the most durable players in the NFL and by far the most durable player on the roster. We know Eric McCoy's out. He's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks. That's very tough. He's having groin surgery. Couldn't be a worse strike for the Saints. Again, I talked about Eric McCoy being number 1 in the league for PFF rating as offensive lineman. He was the best center in the NFL through 2 weeks, and his sidekick Lucas Patrick as well was in that same spot. But it's just... it's going to be so hard for the Saints to stay away from some of the tendencies that they had in the Eagles game due to the injuries. And the play calling just has to be better as well. We see that Chris Olave's day-to-day with a hamstring. Alvin Kamara is questionable. Chris Olave being questionable as well. So the Saints are in mid-season form. The Saints are in week 11, week 12, I guess you could say week 7 or week 8 form. And I just want to ask a question, genuinely. Darby, you know you and I talked about this. What is going on with the New Orleans Saints conditioning? This is the 5th straight year we have been decimated by injuries early on. Is the strength and conditioning coach just not registering between the ears for the guys? Or are they not taking the proper therapy or the proper post game routines after you go through 25 car crashes on an NFL Sunday? I don't understand. I don't. And it's so frustrating to see how elite we are when we are healthy. And the moment that the wheels start to fall off the bus, we look average. We look average when the wheels start to fall off the bus because of injuries. What is the O line going to do to adjust? That is a major question. David Bakhtiari and Donovan Smith are available. Now, I understand those are free agents. I understand that they might not be the most solid pickups right now for the NFL or in the NFL. I thought David Bakhtiari was actually going to sign with the Bears, but it turns out he hasn't yet. I believe that was just a rumor. Donovan Smith, who used to play for the Kansas City Chiefs, is also available. And you got to respect the Saints for responding to the offensive line injuries. They literally hosted an entirely new offensive line on tryouts this week. The center, Brian Allen. Do y'all remember Brian Allen for the Los Angeles Rams? I really feel like Brian Allen should be a priority signing. Brian Allen, David Bakhtiari, and Donovan Smith should be on the Saints' radar. I would probably prefer Brian Allen over all of them. I know Bakhtiari was dealing with some of those injuries. You got the tackle Gottlieb Ayedze, the tackle Andrew Coker, guard Chris Reed, and guard Josh Sills. So they're literally working out an entirely new offensive line, which I respect them for, because when you have Trevor Penning and Oli Udoh and Lucas Patrick playing center, and you're losing Ruiz, you're losing McCoy, you lost Ramczyk for probably most of the year. This was the biggest question mark walking into the New Orleans Saints season, and they are faced with it tenfold in week 4 against their biggest rivals on the road after taking the loss at home to the Eagles. So it's going to be a tough game for the Saints. Nobody's saying that it's not going to be. And if the offensive line can't get it together, the offense won't be able to come back to life. They won't be able to. I understand Kubiak and Carr did the best they could last week when your center goes out. Again, if you don't know, your center is literally the quarterback of your offensive line. So when they go out, it's very, very tough for teams to get their bearings. It just is. That guy probably knows the most out of everyone on the O-line. And when he goes down on the third play of the game, your entire game plan changes. Because you move a guy in Lucas Patrick over to center who really isn't a center, but he was your best O lineman, so you're not going to throw Oli Udoh in there or Trevor Penning after you've already mishandled him. So Lucas Patrick was the only solution. I really hope Kubiak can bring the offense back to life, but if there's no Chris Olave, if there's no Alvin Kamara, there's already no A.T. Perry, Cedric Wilson is questionable, it's going to be the Rashid Shaheed and Bub Means show. And the Jamal Williams show, because Kendre Miller hasn't even come back from. Kendre Miller, I think, is going to start practicing on Wednesday. We're finally going to see Kendre Miller back, which Kendre is a solid guy, but he can never stay healthy. And that's the issue. And if the offense doesn't come back to life, because Atlanta's not going to make it easy. They're giving up 17.6 points per game, 18 for conversation's sake. They are scoring and giving up the exact same amount of points on average on the season. So Atlanta's not going to make it simple. You know the crowd's going to be in that game. So you got to come off with some explosive plays. You know Atlanta's going to be loud. They're going to be stingy on defense. They have Justin Simmons. They have Jesse Bates, arguably the best safety tandem in the NFL next to the Ravens with Marcus Williams and Kyle Hamilton. Derek Carr is going to have to make better reads. We're going to have to get more creative with pre-snap motion. We're going to have to get more creative with everything. Play action, letting Derek Carr set his feet, protecting the pass rush from the Matthew Judons and the Grady Jarretts and the David Onyematas. It looks like Grady Jarrett and David Onyemata actually might not be in this game. The Falcons are kind of dealing with their own injuries as well. But a bigger question is, will we be able to stop Bijan Robinson? Because Saquon Barkley, the way he just ran through the Saints O-line, boy, if I watch another 8.6 yards per carry game at over 15 yards a carry, 15 carries on the game, I might have an aneurysm, honestly. Because you just think back to the Saints' years of not allowing a 100-yard rusher. And then the last team to bust us out of that was when Jalen Hurts and Miles Sanders did it. And the Saints haven't been the greatest against the run since those years. We know that. But when you let Jalen Hurts throw on you for 312, Dallas Goedert lace you up for 170 on a career day, and you make Saquon Barkley look like that former number 4 overall pick out of Penn State who's got that 4.25 speed going down the field when he's in the open field, that's hard. The defense has to step up, and Bijan Robinson gives me kind of that similar vibe. Bijan is literally a younger Saquon. Now, I know he was a little limited in practice, but I sat in the stands in Atlanta last year when Derek Carr threw the pick six to Jesse Bates, and I turned around and watched Desmond freaking Ridder throw a wheel route to Bijan Robinson. I also watched Bijan Robinson kind of eat us up on the ground as well. So Bijan's going to be a major part of this game that the Saints cannot let get away from them, because you know the Falcons are going to come out. They're going to pound the football. It's going to be Bijan, little Tyler Algier, Bijan. You know they are. They know in a rivalry week, they have watched the tape, and they're going to run the hell out of the ball against the Saints. I might eat crow for saying this, but I'm not afraid of Atlanta's offense just yet. I'm not. They have amazing talent, but they're only averaging 18 points per game. And they've got some injuries as well. I understand the likes of the Kyle Pitts and the Drake Londons and the Bijan Robinson like we just talked about, but we still see that Kirk Cousins is getting comfortable. Caleb McGarry and Drew Dahlman, they're up in the air. They went out in the last game. So they're dealing with their own center and offensive line injuries as well. So will they be able to run the ball effectively? Will the offense be able to click like we saw the Saints click in the first 2 weeks when all of their offensive line was together? I'm not afraid of Atlanta's offense yet. Now, I know they're going to come out and run a lot of the same things that Philly just did. Hell, they might come out and make it the Kyle Pitts show. Hell, if Dallas Goedert could just do that with no Devontae Smith and no A.J. Brown, why can't we with a number 4 overall pick in Kyle Pitts? That we continue to diminish in this offense, and he's only had 5 targets on the whole year. I mean, what are we doing? I don't know if that 5 targets thing is correct, but I remember talking about it in recent shows that I'm last show actually on Tuesday. I'm just waiting for the Falcons to use Kyle Pitts more effectively. So again, I'm not afraid of Atlanta's offense just yet. Score prediction for the game. If Alvin Kamara and Chris Olave don't play, I think the Falcons win this one close and ugly. Hate to say it, but if it's the Bub Means Rashid Shaheed show with a little bit of Jamal Williams and whoever the hell the third string running back is, Darby, if you're still in the comments, maybe you could help me out. I got the Falcons winning 20-17 if Kamara and Olave don't play. If Kamara and Olave do play, I think the Saints will win 24-20. Feels a little generous on the 24 points for the Saints, but hopefully they can prove me. Hopefully they can prove me wrong. Shaheed season, they're going to be loud with their crowd noise. 100%, bro. That stadium is going to be on fire. It's going to be absolutely on fire, and I can't wait for us to be able to witness it, man. This has been episode 74 of the NFL with AJL. I appreciate everybody tuning into the show tonight, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch. If you're catching us on another stream, let me know, because that's the only 3 I know of us being on. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit the bell as well so you never miss a post on the page. And please like the stream also. You guys would be super awesome. Share the stream wherever you're watching. The QR code, every bit of social media and podcast content at the NFL with AJL. If you can't find me, I promise you simply are not looking hard enough. As always, we're sponsored by Buy and Sell with AJL for all your worldwide professional real estate needs. Whether you're looking to buy a home, sell a home, or invest in real estate, this is the number one real estate team that you need on your side. It's been a big year for listings for them. They're helping their clients at a very high level. They still got the newsletter. They still got the monthly neighborhood market reports. They still have the dead honest advice on today's real estate market and how to set you up for success. Buy and Sell with AJL on all social media platforms. And again, we are partnered with PlayStation Online. If you're looking for the best gaming and Christian collaboration, this is the one for you, or just gaming and worship in general. It's not necessarily geared towards Christianity. It's just a couple of praying hands. I am a Christian. I'm a God-fearing man. I'm not trying to go there, but that's just honestly the facts, man. So at PlayStation Online, use code AJL at checkout if you want it on a hat, some sweatpants, a hoodie, you name it. They can probably put it on there for you. Or if you just want a sticker, if you just wanted to donate directly to the cause, at PlayStation Online for the best gaming and worship collab out there. Let's get into the back half of the show. We're going to have some talk about the 2021 NFL draft class, and we'll bring Justin Fields up to the table first for his ultimate judgment. But it's really not an ultimate judgment for Justin Fields because Justin Fields seems to be turning his career around in Pittsburgh. Justin Fields is looking very solid in Pittsburgh right now. He's 3-0. He doesn't look nervous. Now, given they're not asking him to do a lot, only one interception thrown on the season, he's playing some of his career best football. And I know, it's 3 games in. But y'all remember me saying that when Justin Fields signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers, he wanted to save his career. There was no question about that. He signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers because they were a more mature organization. They have Mike Tomlin. Arthur Smith maybe is a quarterback whisperer because we saw him as OC when Ryan Tannehill came in and turned him into an elite quarterback for 8 weeks. Okay? So there are some bright spots for Justin Fields' career here. And I couldn't be happier for the kid. Let me just start off by saying that. I was a big Justin Fields fan when he was over in Georgia. I hated how he didn't get much playing time. He transfers to Ohio State, lights the world up. Everybody thinks he should be the second overall pick. We see Zach Wilson go to the Jets mistakenly, and the rest was kind of history. But we do see the Bears jump up and take Justin Fields as well. And I said the Bears had stole the draft that year. So know that I'm a Justin Fields fan. I love this kid. I'm happy to see him winning at this clip in the league. I know. It's 3 games. Well, what about Russell Wilson in the back? We're not talking about Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson still doesn't have a timetable for a return. So as far as I'm concerned, this is Justin Fields' offense for the 2024-25 NFL season, and maybe a playoff win with the way that or a playoff start with the way that the Steelers are looking. And I understand Mike Tomlin playing semantics. He doesn't want to necessarily say who is or isn't his starting quarterback for the rest of the year, but this is Justin Fields' team right now. And he deserves it. He's earned it. Obviously so. Justin Fields has already come out and said the coaching for the Steelers is not even close to the coaching that he got with the Bears, or vice versa, however you want to look at it. It's praise, not shade. Mike Tomlin and Arthur Smith, with that Steelers franchise, are turning Justin Fields into a confident quarterback, a 0 turnover worthy play quarterback. And yes, that's facts per PFF. A quarterback who looks confident in the pocket, who's not being asked to do too much, who is only running when he needs to, making the simple reads, playing that sound fundamental football that I knew the maturity and the stability of the Pittsburgh Steelers would give to him. And you got to shout out the Steelers skill players because they're really generating the least, not even shout out the Steelers skill players. I was looking at another point. Some things that just make it a little more impressive for Justin Fields is his skill players are generating the least amount of separation on any team besides the Carolina Panthers, yet Justin Fields still ranks in the upper half of the league for accuracy. The Steelers' O-line is creating the fewest number of clean pockets in the league. So his performance from a clean pocket is still a major opportunity for improvement. His time to throw is still kind of high, but it's mostly in line with the rest of the true dual threat quarterbacks in the league. His average depth of target is 9th among all quarterbacks. I want to know Fields' completion percentage real quick because his completion percentage being at 73.3% on the year, knowing that his wide receivers aren't making much separation, that's impressive. That's very impressive to know that his skill players are not getting separation, and Justin Fields is completing 70+% of his passes. Who thought Justin Fields was going to do that with the Pittsburgh Steelers? I want a show of hands in the comments. Yeah, that's right. There are no show of hands. Maybe because there's not enough of y'all in the comments, but nobody thought that was going to happen. Babe, I love you. I see the comments out there. Falcons could have had Jamar Chase that year, right? No, I don't think so. No, well, maybe. They should have taken an O-line or a D-lineman that year, but I don't know. But they did definitely go kind of crazy with that pick. So his time to throw is high, but his average depth of target is 9th of all quarterbacks. He's completing over 70% of his passes despite the fact that his receivers are getting the second least amount of separation in the league, and that they are generating the fewest number of clean pockets in the league. When Justin Fields is faced with pressure, he's actually extending plays for a shorter duration of time than the league average. And probably the most interesting part, which appeals to the fact that he held the ball for a while, he took bad sacks. They're generating the least amount of separation, and they're generating the least amount of clean pockets. So you can argue he's got the dirtiest pockets in the NFL for his offensive line. He has the least amount of talented wide receivers in the NFL due to separation. And that's saying a lot for the least amount of separation, because remember, the Giants had no separation. The Patriots had no wide receiver separation. I think at one time the Seahawks were lacking separation. And now the Steelers are taking that turn. And Justin Fields' pressure to sack ratio is 6th in the NFL. He's among the best in the league right now at not taking sacks when he gets pressure. Justin Fields, again, over 70% completion is up over 10% from his career average with the Chicago Bears, which is peaking at about 59, 60%. Per PFF, he has the 5th best passing grades, the 3rd most big-time throws. He's tied with Josh Allen for the 8th best adjusted completion percentage of 79.5%, and has had 0 turnover-worthy plays. And we remember, what did we say about Justin Fields? He holds the ball too long. He turns the ball over a lot. He's running too often, and he's taking too many sacks, which is why nobody thought that Caleb Williams was going to be successful, because the Bears don't have an O-line. Well, as of right now, the Steelers aren't generating clean pockets for Justin Fields to be a textbook fundamental quarterback, and he's crushing it. He's absolutely crushing it. And if you at this point are hating on this kid, you just got to find something to do better with your time, honestly. I liked Fields better than Trevor Lawrence as a prospect. Obviously, hindsight, maybe that wasn't the case, but let's see that, we'll talk about in the next segment. Trevor Lawrence isn't necessarily doing his best either. But to know that Justin Fields has kind of turned his career around is impressive. And it makes you feel optimistic about the future in Pittsburgh, potentially. Because Pittsburgh, I mean, every you could say every team needs a playmaker at quarterback, right? But if Pittsburgh could just get a Brock Purdy level of play out of Justin Fields, which means study your playbook, don't make turnover-worthy plays, and just make smart decisions, which really says, don't make turnover-worthy plays, and just really do as you're asked. Chicago asked a lot of him. I mean, we saw him almost break the rushing record that Lamar Jackson set just a couple of seasons ago, because he was running for his life with the Chicago Bears. And people wanted to say, oh, Justin Fields was breaking out. No, he wasn't. He didn't even throw for 2,800 yards that year. I get that's not his strong suit, but you have to throw for at least 3,500 yards in today's NFL. You have to. If you want to have a prolific passing attack, or at least be able to generate yards per play, you have to be able to throw the football. You have to be able to. But I'm so proud of Justin Fields, man. I mean, I said it when he went over there. This kid just saved his career. He literally just saved his career. And as far as I'm concerned, let the kid have the reins until Russell Wilson proves that he deserves it otherwise. Because Justin Fields has proved it. Justin Fields, shortly after preseason, coming into week 1, you're going to be the starter, kid. After Mike Tomlin already came out and specifically told the media that it was Russell Wilson's job. Any given Sunday, not for long, and in came Justin Fields, and he's just doing what he needs to do. He's doing what he needs to do. And if Pittsburgh can keep this exact scheme going, they'll have success. I mean, you look at Pittsburgh's schedule, the way they're playing now, this could be a double-digit win team. And you're telling me, with the way that the AFC North? Yes, because obviously it's not AFC East. Dude, I'm totally having a brain fart. Like, I know all my life it's AFC North, but I'm still like, huh? With the way the AFC North is going, the Bengals are winless. The Browns are lost. The Ravens just mustered their first win after almost pulling a Falcons in front of Tom Brady in Dallas. And the Steelers are 3-0. So you're telling me, with the way that Justin Fields is playing football right now, that Mike Tomlin would really turn around and give that job back to Russell Wilson to kill the confidence of Justin Fields like that? No, he wouldn't. Because Mike Tomlin's not that kind of coach. And I think Justin has more than earned, more than deserved this spot with the way that he's played football. And there's nothing you can say to hate on the kid because he's doing his job now. Thank you, Darby. Yeah, I was like brain fart. I was like, I know it's not the East because my God, who is in the AFC? Oh, the Jets, Patriots, that whole division. West is obviously Chiefs, Chargers. South is obviously Jags, Texans, Colts. I was like, which division is this, dude? Is this guy really a football fan? I'm about to unsubscribe from his show. But yeah. I mean, everything is different for Justin Fields. The coaching, the schemes, the confidence, the leadership. And this kid doesn't even necessarily have the most weapons in the NFL. This is why coaching matters. Y'all remember me saying a couple of years ago when I was the What Offseason podcast, the Browns were loaded with Baker Mayfield and Nick Chubb and OBJ, and they had just drafted Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. They had Denzel Ward. They had that elite defense breaking out. But they were led by Freddie Kitchens. And when you look at Kevin Stefanski, even though he's got the worst contract in NFL history with Deshaun Watson, there's a reason he's won Coach of the Year twice. And that's a perfect testament as to what's happening right now with Justin Fields. Guys, we have to ask the question about Trevor Lawrence. I know it's been floating around there, but it's a serious question. Is Trevor Lawrence a bust? Is the number one overall pick, the generational prospect out of Clemson, would have went number one overall as a true freshman, Trevor Lawrence, a bust? Because when you look at what the kid's been going through lately, and I don't want to hear anything about head coaching and offensive coordinators because he's had two. Yes, it's not a great start with Urban Meyer. You turn it over to the OC, who doesn't do well either. They go 2-14 that year. In comes Doug Peterson. They obviously go into the playoffs. Trevor Lawrence literally cuts his picks in half and doubles his touchdowns. And the Jaguars look great. But now, Doug Peterson in Jacksonville and Trevor Lawrence specifically, they're in some tough spots. They are in some very tough spots. And even Doug Peterson came out and said, we're making changes, quarterback included, if it's needed. Trevor Lawrence is 0-8 in his last 8 games. This is the second time in his career he's had an 8-game losing streak. He's 0-3 to start the year. Now, let's not forget what Trevor Lawrence did with that 20-game stretch from week 9 of 2022 through week 12 of 2023. He threw for 5,019 yards, 27 touchdowns, 9 picks. He had a 15-5 record over that span. But what has Trevor Lawrence done is in its entirety outside of a 20-game lightning in the bottle stretch? He's gone 5-28 with 33 touchdown passes, 31 picks, and 12 fumbles lost over 33 starts. He was 15-5 in the 20-game stretch. He's 5-28 in the other 33. And what's sad about a guy like Trevor Lawrence, who was generationally great in college, who was without question should have been the number one overall pick, even though it was to Urban Meyer, which at the time I was like, wow, Urban could be a solid hire. Absolutely not. Fired mid-season because it was that bad. Trevor Lawrence is not playing with confidence. He's turning the ball over. Jags fans, close your ears for this one. Following the Monday night obliteration of 47-10 against the Bills, not only did Trevor Lawrence throw an interception to Damar Hamlin, he has now turned the ball over 61 times in his career, which is the most committed by any player since Trevor Lawrence was drafted number one overall in 2021. Of those 61 turnovers, 21 of them were lost fumbles, and he's fumbled the ball 34 times. Now, I understand that Trevor Lawrence got injured in 2023. Jaguars took 5 straight losses to close the year. They went from an 8-3 start to 9-8. They missed the postseason. And even after all that, the Jaguars decided to give Trevor Lawrence $55 million a year. Now, we know that they made the postseason in 2022. They ended the game on a 5-year win streak. Everybody expected the Jaguars to probably win the division last year. And then the Texans came in and did what they did. I wasn't worried about the Titans. The Colts were kind of sneaky. And the Jaguars, now, yes, while they were 8-3, you go 1-5 down the stretch. You go 9-3, and then you lose 5 straight. And this is what happens for the quarterback money aspect, this is what happens when you pay a quarterback prematurely. Packers did it with Jordan Love, and Jordan Love played good for half a season. Don't say anything about that blowout to Dallas at home, because at this point for Dallas, that's not impressive. You were supposed to do that. Trevor Lawrence had a 20-game lightning in a bottle stretch. 5,000 yards, 27 touchdowns, 9 picks. But did the Jaguars not see that he was 33 touchdowns with 31 picks and 12 lost fumbles outside of that 20-game stretch? Did the Jaguars not grasp that nobody has turned the ball over in the NFL more than Trevor Lawrence since he's come into the league? And again, I don't want to hear it about his head coaching. He's had 2 of them. Baker Mayfield and Justin Fields have dealt with more coaches, more coordinators, and arguably less talent than Trevor Lawrence. I get it. Urban Meyer started off, it was horrible. I said it when I was back on Petty Sports. They're going to fire him. They are going to fire Urban Meyer in the middle of the year, because you cannot mishandle basically what people expected Jamarcus Russell to be. Okay, Jamarcus Russell was a huge, huge prospect. Trevor Lawrence was a major prospect as well. People literally said this is probably the most hyped since Reggie Bush, Jamarcus Russell, insert legendary college football player here. We know what people were saying about T-Law. And for it to just turn into this is rough, man. It's rough because you know that Trevor Lawrence is a winner at heart. You know he is. There's no doubting that. But the numbers do speak for themselves. Press Taylor's done the best he can as the OC. Doug Peterson is doing the best that he can as a head coach. But let's keep it honest for a second about Dougie P. Outside of the postseason where the Chargers blew it under Brandon Staley, because that's what the Chargers do at home in the playoffs, what has Doug Peterson really done to keep this job, considering how it's going so far? Because he's on the hot seat by Thanksgiving for sure. The position that Doug Peterson is in right now is exactly where Sean Payton was last season with the Broncos after he took that 70-20 loss from the Dolphins. I know Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl. I get that. Nick Foles, the Philly special, beat Brady, la, 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 la. I get that. I'm not doubting that. And I'm not doubting the fact that he had a part in doubling Trevor Lawrence's touchdowns, cutting his interceptions in half, making him a 4,000-yard passer, getting him to the playoffs, and getting him a playoff win. But you got to take a look at Doug Peterson. My ultimate synopsis of what's wrong with Trevor Lawrence is I think he's still kind of playing with injuries. When Darby and I went to the Saints-Falcons game Saints-Jaguars game last year on Thursday Night Football, Trevor Lawrence was playing hurt. He was playing on a hurt ankle. And for some odd reason, we still allowed him to scramble around. For some odd reason, we still allowed him to move, which was very baffling to me. And I just think Trevor Lawrence is playing with a low level of confidence. The head coach might be in over his head. And he's probably still nursing injuries. He dealt with injuries all of 2023. And you know what they say? You limp out of the season and you'll limp into it. Or if you limp into the season, you'll limp out of it. It's just what happens if you don't take care of your body in this league. It's just as simple as that. And again, I hate it for Trevor Lawrence, man, because he just got paid. But this isn't even a quarterback problem in the NFL. This is a general manager front office problem. Stop backing up the damn Brinks trucks to guys that have not earned it yet. I get it. They could go hit the open market. Other people would just pay them what they're going to be paid. And I understand I'm complaining about a moot point right now. But if NFL owners with the billions that they're worth just stood up and said, if every owner just said, you're not getting this payday until you've put me a 17-game consistent sample size on paper, or at least, I wouldn't even say at least 10, because that's why these guys are getting paid. At least Trevor Lawrence had a 20-game stretch and a playoff win and a comeback win. But Jordan Love played good for half a season. Joe Burrow hasn't been able to stay healthy. And I get it. Burrow's good. AFC chips, Super Bowl appearances. Maybe should have won a Super Bowl in his first full year as a starter, okay? But you have to take it within context. Words matter. actions are seeable and they matter. So when you pay your quarterback 55, 60 million a year, and you wonder why you can't pay a top receiver or a top tight end or a top defensive player, bro's eating up 40% of the salary cap. And I get it. I am complaining about a point that is going to do nothing but get worse in the league. But the NFL has become a league where a rookie quarterback contract is the most valuable thing, because once these guys want their money, you are backing the truck up to them. You are paying them $250 million. The $300 million contract is coming soon. Okay, the average contract being $300 million is coming soon. And we will continue to see those teams be cash strapped or go and pick through talent like Philly did in the Super Bowl year, or the Eagles did, or excuse me, the Patriots did for many years, or like the Rams have been able to do and get the most use out of their guys. It's just disappointing to see. And I mean, when you even look at Trevor Lawrence's weapons, his first year, James Robinson, Marvin Jones, and that was really it. The defense was okay. 2022, they draft Travis Etienne. They get Zay Jones. They have Christian Kirk. They bring in Evan Ingram, who does great as well, kind of has that reinvigoration from his career. So he's had some players. Again, Travis Etienne, Christian Kirk, Calvin Ridley, Evan Ingram. So he's had weapons. Okay? It's not that Trevor Lawrence hasn't had talent around him. It's not that at all. Again, I genuinely think the guy is playing hurt. And when you turn the ball over as much as he's been turning the ball over, that is a lack of confidence. That is a very low level, low vibe of football. So I'm going to end this rant with this. I don't think Trevor Lawrence is a bust yet, all things considered, but he's about to get out of his fourth year in the league, and he's he's in his fourth year in the NFL, and he's 0-3 to start it off. If the Jags do not figure out a quarterback change to potentially get T-Law's confidence, maybe just back up. Maybe he just needs to be benched for a week or two. Maybe he just needs to take a little bit of a backseat role and just get back physically and mentally right. Get that high level of confidence. Get that generational talent going again. If they don't get a head coach in there that can possibly replace Doug Peterson, get someone on the staff, which I know that time of the season is kind of over, Trevor Lawrence will be a bust. He will. I'm sorry, but he will. His 28 losses are more than the games he played when he was on the 20. The 28 losses overpowers the good 20-game stretch. I know the 20-game stretch was with Doug Peterson, and I know it came in a playoff year. But we are a year removed from that on a 5-game skid and on an 8-game skid. And this is the second 8-game skid in his career. So he's not a bust yet, but after the fourth year, if things still go this way, it's going to be hard not to call him one, because you can only blame, first of all, you can't blame the talent. You can't blame the coordinators, his offensive coordinator, his quarterback's coaches. But you take a look at that head coaching position and you take a look at those injuries. And that's back on Trevor Lawrence if he's playing hurt. That's back on the team if they're allowing him to play hurt, if they're not setting him up for success, drawing up game plans to where he won't get banged up. I like Trevor Lawrence, guys. I do. Okay. When he was coming into his own during the 20-game stretch, I was like, there he is. There is the Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence has arrived. The third season is going to be major for him. And so far, he hasn't. You remember when Trevor Lawrence came into the league, and then we're going to get out of the show on this. Y'all remember when Trevor Lawrence came into the league and said that something along the lines of, football wasn't his life completely. It wasn't his huge dream. He could go without football. He just really likes playing football. People talked about that. People talked about how Trevor Lawrence didn't lose a game in high school or college. And they wondered what would happen with his confidence when the time finally came. Because it was going to happen. Trevor Lawrence has won 20 games, and he's lost 33. Yeah, he's got a playoff win. I know. He does. Keep driving that point to the ground. I know. But he's got to get healthy. And his numbers and his situation is what it is. And confidence is everything. You have to play with confidence. You have to move with confidence in life. And quarterback position in the NFL, it's 90, if not 95% mental. You can't psych yourself out. You have to know your plays. You have to be tapped in, but you also do have to play healthy and have a coaching staff leading you the right way. So I don't want to call him a bust yet, but just keep in mind what he said about football when he came into the year. And we wondered what it would be like once he started losing these football games. That was episode 74 of the NFL with AJL. I want to get into your guys' comments before we get out of here. Blonde Daniel Jones, bros fumbled more than me. They are all overpaid, and he thinks he's a bust. I couldn't agree with you more on everything, man. That was episode 74 of the NFL with AJL. I appreciate the hell out of everybody for jumping into the podcast tonight. Again, you could have been anywhere else in the world, but you were right here tapped in with me on the show. Before we get out of here, make sure you like and share that stream again. Subscribe on YouTube. Hit the bell so you never miss a post. The QR code will give you every bit of social media and podcast content. So if you can't find me, I promise you are simply not looking hard enough. As always, Buy and Sell with AJL. We're sponsored by them. We are also sponsored by PlayStation Online. I appreciate the sponsors that give their time to let me promote the products and the services on the show, because without them, there is no us, and vice versa. Without you guys, there is no the NFL with AJL and the Double A when we do cover the college football segments. As always, I love y'all. I need y'all. I might be bringing you an instant reaction tomorrow on the Georgia game, and I'll see y'all on episode 75